Ahead of the Game podcast can explore potentially sensitive and triggering topics throughout each episode, including but not limited to mental health, physical health, trauma, addiction, and even death. If at any time you become triggered or impacted, please connect with your local resources or report to your local emergency room. Ahead of the Game is not intended to be a substitute for professional mental advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All opinions expressed by Ahead of the Game guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of the Ahead of the Game host, Sage Elite Healing, or its team of professionals. Always seek the advice of your licensed medical professional regarding questions or concerns with your mental and physical health. Please know, there is help and you're not alone. Welcome everyone for another episode of Ahead of the Game with Sage Elite Healing. Today we have such an awesome guest with us today. We have Mr. Dwayne Allen, a 7-year NFL, 7-year correct NFL vet.
Hey, for pension purposes, 8. Okay.
Hey,
Wow.
okay. I did my research and I was trying to add it up. So 8-year NFL vet, Super Bowl champion, and also 2015 Walter Payton Man of the Year. That's a huge one right there, man.
For sure.
And also currently a player director with the NFL Players Association. So, Mr. Dwayne, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and joining us.
Mark, Brandon, thank you guys for having me, man. Whenever Brandon reached out and asked if I would be a guest, I told him it would be my honor. So I appreciate you guys wanting me to come on.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
you coming on, Dwayne.
I guess I should wish you a happy belated tight end day as well.
Yeah.
I've never made it to your guys' level, but I also play tight end, so we have a tight end podcast here today. So
let's do it.
There we
mad
go.
respect for the tight
13,
ends.
what 13 personnel?
Let's go.
So Dwayne, spending your time as a player and now transitioning and being a player director with the NFLPA, what's that like for you, and what does that role really entail?
I was fortunate enough to be awarded the John Mackey Award coming out of college. And John Mackey, Hall of Fame tight end, I go up to Rochester, New York for the John Mackey Foundation ceremony to receive the reward. And they play a video of John Mackey's legacy before. And I'm thinking it's going to be all of his highlights, an hour worth of highlights, right? Like
Yeah.
And it was like 10 minutes of him playing. And the last 50 minutes of that video was about how he served his brothers through his involvement with the union and, of course, becoming the first president of the National Football League Players Association. So very early, there was a love or affinity with serving my brothers through my involvement with the union. And so it's been cool, man. I was a rep for 7 years.
Right. Yeah.
Team council, and as I transitioned, some positions opened up, and they asked if I would be interested in interviewing, and went through the interview process. And now in year 2, I can't see myself doing anything else. I get to be the player director that I wish I had, and that's no disrespect to those player directors that I had at the time, because I have some great ones. But I get to build upon that, right? Like, we've all drunk from wells that we have not dug, and so I get to pay homage to them by the way that I provide world-class service and support to the current membership.
Dwayne, I got a question. It just made me think about. So, what did you do when football was over? I know when football was over for me, I struggled to find that next step. I struggled going through that transition. A lot of our brothers do. So, like how did you find the next thing for you? What was next for you after football?
Man, the next thing found me in the form of an idea. And bro, we all struggle. Like, even those who seem like they transition so quick and things are going well, I promise you, they struggle with day-to-day reality. Now being in a corporate world or whatever setting they may be in, it's totally different than the world that we were exposed to as professional athletes. And so, I got an idea. Pandemic, right? Whenever the stadiums were shut down, I thought to myself, you know what? How would I be able to measure fan engagement? From a second screen device. And I started working on live broadcast gamification, and really just going down and seeking out the answers for that idea took me on this introspective journey into myself, right?
Yeah.
And I had to figure out me, right?
Right.
As it goes, the beginning of all wisdom starts with knowledge of oneself, right? Like I had to figure out who I was, who I am, and whose I am, right? In order to try to birth this idea into this
Right.
imaginary
Yeah.
world that we live in. And so
Hmm.
I started working on that, man, and honestly, like the doors just started opening. Right, I started to share what I was working on or what I wanted to do with people. I started to reach out to my network,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
and they provided resources. And honestly, a year later, man, I got to a point where I didn't have enough knowledge and I didn't have a large enough network in the tech community to continue working on my idea. And that's when the Players Association reached out to me.
You speak a lot about service, right? The Mackey Award. You spoke about helping your brothers and fellow players throughout your
That's one
time.
thing he taught me too, Mark. I remember
Yeah.
having lunch with him. He taught me. Um, I think it was. I don't remember all the details, but I think it was. What's your coach from Clemson? It was Dabo.
Yeah,
He taught you
swing.
the three S's. I think it's the three S's.
Yeah. Submit, serve, and sacrifice.
Yeah, there it goes. So I always remember that when I'm when I'm going through a hard time or just like whenever I need something to ground me or put me in
Yeah.
a good spot.
You,
Without a doubt.
well, I mean, as a social worker, service is my life's journey, right? And so I'm very aligned with you and what you're saying. And tell me, the Walter Payton Award is what you do on the field and off. And I guess tell me how did you go? I mean, going back 7 years now to that year, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
you're
What
also
year
still
was that,
guiding.
Dwayne?
2015 in Indy.
What team you was on? You was on Indy? Okay.
Yeah, with the
Okay.
Colts.
And so tell me, how does at Sage Elite, we talk about mental health and physical health. And I think the Walter Payton Award kind of shows a lot about that too, because you got to put forth the effort and practicing on the field. And then there's a whole other side of the coin, right? So they run parallel with each other. Kind of, if you can expand on, your time getting to that point of winning that award
Yeah,
and
certainly.
focusing.
I've been very fortunate to come up in a family where a single parent home. My mom always preached that we are here to serve. And so it was something that I've lived from a very early age. And, I look back and I'm like, we were in no position to be
To
serving
be serving,
anyone else. Like, what
giving
are
out
you
our
talking
blessings, we just
about?
got we
Yeah,
starving.
But
right.
like with my mom was a teen mom, an early teen mom. She had my older sister when she was 12. She had me, the youngest of seven, before she was 22, right? So seven kids before 22, a 26-year-old grandmother, right? Like there was not much that she could pass on to me, but what she did was good manners, right?
Right. Yeah.
How to take care of myself and how to survive, but then also how to serve other people. And I
That's
promise you, like those are the only three things that anyone needs in this world in
right.
order to be successful and get ahead or achieve any goals that they have for themselves. And so I go to Clemson University and I'm around this guy named Dabo Sweeney, and all he preaches is, service to others and how passionate he is about his mission of molding boys into men. In From community service to experiential learning trips to now even having a fourth quarter department called Paul Journey, passionate about winning.
Okay.
They are the transitionary arm for college players,
Nice.
for Clemson University football players in particular,
Oh,
where they
nice.
provide them with community service, experiential learning trips, internships to
Awesome.
prepare them for what's next.
That's
But Coach Sweeney always preached about service
Yeah.
and how to bloom where you're planted. And so whenever I got to Indianapolis, that's all I knew, right? Like, hey, look, let me get into the community and serve and give hope to the people.
Well, I tell you, working
that's
with a
big.
lot
Props to
of
you, bro.
Yeah, I mean, working with a lot of people that are, battling addiction, right? Specifically in that addiction demographic is, when you're starting to feel urges or cravings, or you just don't feel like yourself, and you get into the other diagnosis, mental health or, depression and anxiety and stuff. One of the biggest things that they say is that when you're feeling like that is to stop what you're doing and go do something for somebody else without them asking you to do it.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
provide that immediate service, and that's what I really teach a lot of people, especially in addiction, is that service and connection are the number one things to help you heal. And when you feel like that, don't isolate. Don't let that anxiety and depression kind of push you into the corner. Stop what you're doing and go do something for somebody without them asking you to do it. And even whether they say thank you or not.
I love that. I love that. It's not about what you receive. It's all about what you give, right?
Well,
Like
if you want to receive something, you better push that energy out there to get it boomeranging back to you.
without a doubt. But that
You know,
whole point of no expectations, I think oftentimes whenever we give in the immediate, there's the expectation to receive in the immediate, and
yeah,
so that whole notion of giving without necessarily the expectation of receiving something right then, right? Like
hmm,
having that, you're what you're doing is molding that delayed gratification for them,
right,
right?
right,
They're
yeah,
so used to that instant gratification, and that's what comes with the addiction, right? Like
mm,
whatever drug or activity or that they may be addicted to, they get to go to it, stimulus
right,
response, right?
right. It's about building that internal stillness to not take the bait. We want to swim past the bait.
That's
And
what
there's
I've
a lot of
learned.
there's a lot of bait out there, fellas.
It
Hey,
is.
a ton of
It's a
bait.
too much.
Look, there's
uh,
a ton of bait. I'm a single father, man, and like it is difficult for me to wrap my head around the fact that I put myself in a situation that I always dreaded, right?
right, yeah,
Yeah.
But I spent too much time dreading the situation and not preparing to prevent the situation, right? And so
Yeah.
now being this single father, like even having that understanding and sharing it with other people don't make my circumstances any easier, right? Like,
yeah,
but it's taking the time to continue to work on myself and understand and grow in my discipline, man. Which I'm big on sacrifice, right? Like I can sacrifice anything. Like I like
You growing up doing it. You
clothes,
growing up.
house, locate. Like
That's life.
that's life. Like get rid of
Yeah.
it, right? But what I've had to come into my like in the season of life that I'm in is learning that obedience is greater than sacrifice.
Yeah.
Like there are things that we know,
right,
right, that um if executed, if we were to execute and be obedient, then there wouldn't be any need for us to sacrifice. But because we're so quick to sacrifice, we think that we can get away with not being obedient to what we know. When it's like, no,
yeah. I think instant gratification, kills consistency, right? I mean, how can you build any type of consistency to kind of climb up the mountain if you're focused on that instant gratification and feeling that moment
The results.
immediately? Yeah, I want it right now.
Yeah.
man,
And I think this is a good, working with players, mental health is much different than physical health, but yet they're the same, right? So, I working with a lot of players, they come to me and they're like, Mark, how long am I going to feel like this?
And Mark, that's my first question. How
Yeah.
long? How long is it gonna take to get over this?
Yeah. Like, how
How long
long am
I'm gonna
I
be on
going to feel
IR
like?
for?
And that's, the reality is that, in physical health, you guys coming up, high school, college, professional football, if a coach came up to you and said, hey, Dwayne, I really need you to improve your 40 speed. Okay, we need to get you a little bit faster. They would come up with a whole routine for you. You'd work your ass off in the gym, and you would immediately see the results. You would see the results. That time might even go down within a couple days, right, of you doing some stuff. Mental health isn't like that. We're going to climb up. It's not linear, right? It's not straight up the mountain. We're going to go up the mountain, go down a valley. We're going to bounce back and forth. We're going to take 5 steps forward, sometimes 6 steps back. You know what I mean? And it's this ebb and flow of it all. And I see, at here at Sage Elite in our clinical programming, we focus on mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And so I guess my next question is, in focusing on how players are transitioning, understanding mental health, Dwayne, how do you focus on your mental component of your health? Thoughts, how fast are they? What are some things that you do as you experience those?
Yeah. So number one, I see a therapist every Monday
Awesome. Okay. Yeah.
at 10 o'clock. Right. Like
Okay.
that's
How long you been
it's
doing
been
that for?
for over a year, and yeah, so like 14 months or so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's been incredible. We're on a break right now because I felt like my conversations were getting repetitive, and
Yeah.
and for me that was time for me to go and do. Right, I'm like, okay, we're at a point now where I notice that these conversations are the same. I'm not necessarily getting insights out of this. Maybe it's because I know what I need to do. I just got to go and
You just
be
gotta put it
Yeah.
into action. You just gotta
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I have
you
the
know the
answers.
play. You
Uh,
just gotta go
yeah,
execute.
Yeah.
just go. And so, but answering your question, personally, man, like whenever I roll out that mat back there at 4 a.m. and after my cold shower, and I get down to go through right my stretching routine for 2 hours, that's my form of meditation. That's what grounds me. While
Hmm.
I'm on that mat, my thoughts try to go to what we got going on later in the
Yep.
day. And I'm like, no, let's
Cell phone,
bring this here to this
email.
hip,
Hmm.
right? Like, let's get it away from everything external. Let's bring it internal and let's heal. Let's use that energy instead
Yep.
of it going out to other things. Let's use it to heal this
Let's
body.
redirect
So
it back towards us. Yeah.
hmm So getting on that mat is definitely something big for my mental health, and this is such a timely conversation because I haven't been on my mat in a while. So this is just reminding me, hey, look, bro, you feel the way that you feel, you have the answers, right? And that's one of the biggest thing and the
Yeah.
hardest thing with being knowledgeable in in any space, right? Like I never want to come off as being fake. I always want, and I don't want to be deified, right? And so whenever I tell people, hey, I wake up at 4 a.m., I take cold showers, I stretch, right? For them, it's like this crazy mountain, and
That's
it's like,
inspiration for
huh,
me.
I would
Hmm.
never be able to, right? Like for most people, it's like I would never be able to, and it's like, hey, look, that's on most days. I
Yeah. Right.
have bad days too. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go through streets of undiscipline just like the next person, right?
Yeah.
Like, but it's understanding that like in order for me to get to the goal, get to the destination that I want to go get to, and accomplish the things that I want to do, and serve the amount of people that I want to serve, like I have to continue to embark on this journey of discipline that I've set out for myself, right? So I'm always transparent with that. It's like, hey,
No.
look,
No. No. I thank you for the transparency. We need that.
I was gonna say, what's your night routine? Like I know we talk about it in the morning. What's your night routine?
night
Like you
routine,
have a
hot
routine to go to
showers.
bed, hot showers, go to
Yeah,
bed.
hot showers and affirmations, right?
Uh,
Like before I go to bed, right? So of
why
course
hot
it's
though? Why hot?
because great question. So
You cold in the
hot,
morning, you use hot at night.
I can answer that
yeah.
question, but I want Dwayne to.
so in the morning, right? I go cold to excite the body, and it's one of those things where, like, I realize that I have conditioned myself. All of life is the conditioning of what we have learned from those
Yep.
around us or read through books and stuff like that, right? So, as it pertains to cold, right, like we've conditioned ourselves to think that cold is bad, right? Because
Hmm.
we have a mental response, right, to that cold hitting our body. But everything about my observations of life have taught me that my feelings, what I'm feeling, isn't always what is best for me. And so, leaning into that hermetic stress of cold water in the morning, right, helps me tackle one of the hardest things of the day, which then gives me fuel to tackle all the mundane hard things throughout the day that I have going on. So it starts with that simple cold shower. And that being the first thing, right? Other people's like, hey, make the bed. That's another one of those mundane tasks, right?
Yep.
That is a form of hormetic stress for them. It's like, I don't like making my bed. Let me go ahead and go and make my bed and do this small. That task is done. Now it rolls on to other things. But that's the purpose of that cold in the
Right.
morning, right? Like the body heats up, I'm ready to go. And especially like because I then leave that cold shower and hit the mat to do some stretching, it's perfect. I also get on, my little trampoline to
Uh,
warm up for like 5 minutes as well to
There you
make sure
go.
the lower body's warm before I start stretching. But hot showers at night to have the reverse effect, right? Like I want the
that
body to
relax you.
cool
Yeah.
down and relax,
Yeah.
right? So
All the tension in the muscles that is being held is holding the skeleton up start to kind of go. They start to kind of loosen up, and all that tension kind of goes away. So yeah, that's huge. Brandon, you and I have talked about the morning routine. Every player I meet with, it's all about that morning routine, especially with having head trauma on board. That frontal lobe, you get up and it's like, I got to go do this, I got to do that, I got to do this, I got to do that, and it's like, we start doing this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that brain gets going. And so, I teach a lot of players how to do sensory resets, which that's a sensory reset of getting into the cold shower and shocking that central nervous system that's powering that brain to be like,
You got to go to your
right? And
breath. The water's so cold. All you
yeah,
can do is breathe.
you're there's nowhere else to go, right? And then I do that nighttime routine as well. Being a therapist and taking on a lot of energies, I got to wash that energy off. Right. Also understanding what the power of the bed is and what it means for us, and making that bed and sealing our ancestors in there. Like being able to understand that they're all connected to us right through that bed. Understanding all of those things. So morning routines are big for us. So, thank you so much for sharing that. I guess emotionally though, when we get into that emotional realm, say you do all that
yeah,
stuff, how do you manage your emotions? Because I try to teach people that, one, your thoughts aren't fact. Two, your emotions aren't fact. You're just experiencing them, right? You're not an angry person. You're experiencing anger at the moment. Chill out,
right,
right?
right.
So, how do you manage those intruding emotions or even moods that we kind of get in?
Yeah, it's through understanding that it's healthy to go through them, right?
Hmm.
It's not it's while it is always healthy to go through a full range of emotions, it's not always beneficial for you to express the full range of
Yeah.
emotions, right?
You can experience it, just don't splash it onto people,
Just don't
right? Yeah.
splash it on the people. And so, man, I get angry, I get sad, I get happy. I go through a full range. I get depressed. I go through the full range of my emotions, and I allow myself to experience those emotions, right? Like,
Okay.
and it's also there are very rare times that I reserve a right to um, for lack of better words, and I apologize for our audience with my language, but I call them fuck it days, right? Like
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
there are very few fuck it days that I have, but whenever I take one, it's because I'm at a point of emotional distress that I don't know
Yeah.
what to do, and so the best thing for me to do at that time is to do nothing, and
Yeah.
so. I reserve those days with the awareness of the responsibilities that are on me because sometimes I don't have the ability to take a fucking day because I have my son or
Yeah.
there's job requirements on me or something like that. But as soon as those duties lighten up, I make sure to take it, and that way I'm able to sit in that emotion, whatever it is, express it to myself, write down if I need to journal. Uh, Take an emergency meeting with my therapist so that I could have someone to talk through it. And then, like you said, right, like connecting with others, then I'm
Hmm.
able to get back around my community, right, and not be alone because no man is good alone.
I like that. I need to do a better job of taking that time. Like you said,
Yeah,
just taking that time to yourself instead of just splashing on the people.
right, and right, part of the self discovery that I've done on myself, right, um, like as far as
I
drugs
want
go,
to
I
dive a
was
little deeper in that self discovery
yeah.
with you too.
Yeah, man. As far as drugs go, right? Like I was never big into drugs, but did I smoke? Yeah, sure. And I've tried other drugs. Alcohol, did I drink? Yeah, sure. and still drink, but those aren't my thing. It's understanding that like my sex drive, right? The way that I cope
Yeah.
is with my sex drive, and I think that's why the Creator planted me in San Francisco, where it's
I
the
remember you
worst
telling me
dating
that.
city. Okay,
It took
worst
you from
major
Miami
dating.
to put you in San Fran.
Okay, all right. So that I could grow and
Oh
seriously,
man.
Straight up.
and then reading books and learning up on semen retention and the benefits of it really helped me understand that part of me and gain right that self control in that area.
Yeah.
And again, it's not, it's a discipline.
I
It's
was gonna say it's a
you're never
practice.
there. You're never there. It's a practice that I go after each and every day. But I bring that up because it's those are the things that like whenever I'm facing that emotional, professional, psychological trauma or discomfort, if you will, that I want to run to, right?
Yeah.
Because of that instant gratification, it's always going
Yeah.
to be right there for me. I
It's
know
gonna feel
exactly how it's
good. It's
going to
gonna
make
make
me
you feel
feel,
good.
and turn off, right? More
Yeah.
so for
Yeah.
me,
None of that other
right?
stuff ain't gonna matter.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters. I get to turn off and just be not only not knowing, all right, in that moment that everything that I just left behind is gonna be right there waiting for me whenever I
Yes,
wake
sir.
up. Right? And worse,
Probably in a worse spot. I was gonna
in a
say in a
worse
worse
Yeah.
spot.
condition than you left
Right?
it.
I just moved into this place, and because of work, I'm traveling. There's nothing on the walls and stuff like that. It's gonna get there, but it's like, all right, cool. Do I take care of the me tomorrow, right? And this is what I always go through. Do I take care of the me tomorrow, or do I focus on the me today? And what I mean by that is, like, if I continue to do the job in the present for the me tomorrow, tackle the little tasks of today so that the me of tomorrow is less burden, right? Then I'm always going to be in a place where I can
Make a good
continue
decision.
continue to make good decisions and stay in
Yeah.
that good, right? Like when things pop up, right? Like I have the room to maneuver around and
Right.
place and adjust, right,
And
to
pause.
things that I wasn't, yeah, and pause, right? But if I'm steady only taking care of the me of today, right? Like with some days we have to be bogged down in today. But what I mean by that is in those instant gratification instances of taking care of today. It's like, hey, do I go and do this? It's going to make me feel good right now. Is that the highest and best use of my time, or is there something that I can do for the me tomorrow that will
Yeah.
better serve me tomorrow and keep me in a better headspace, right? So,
I think that's
yeah.
where consistency comes in right there, right? The
Yeah.
consistency component. What were you going to say,
I wanted
Brandon?
to ask you, Dwayne. So, like, what was your mental? What was your mentality like when you was playing football versus your mentality like now? Like, 'cause I know when I was playing, I was like, I always tell people I was a totally different person that I'm trying to be now. I'm more of a relaxed, peaceful person. But when I was playing football, I was just, you got to be a different character out there on the field. So, what was just like when you was playing? Because I didn't know you when I was like when we were playing.
Yeah.
I knew of you and all those good things. I never knew you as a person, but now I do. So, it's interesting to know like what kind of mentality you have.
Man, I was head down, feet turning, right? Like one of the things that my mom taught me was how to survive. And when you're in survival mode, there's no time
Yeah.
for you to stop. It is head down, feet turning. And so I coming from poverty, getting to Clemson, leaving Clemson, going to the pros, right? Being in the pros and being financially secure, right? That never stopped that survival mode that I was always in. Head down, feet turning, gotta save, gotta hoard, can't right? Like it was very unhealthy and it limited and I wasn't living, I was surviving. And unfortunately, a lot of guys who come from similar circumstances who were never taught or was never you know in the circumstances where they were able to learn how to live and had the freedom to live, they're multimillionaires in survival mode,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And not understanding where their unhealthy decisions and stuff are coming from because they're only right like perpetuating the habits in a way that were passed on to them from their impoverished circumstance, right? Like poverty is
right.
a thing of the mind, not one of necessary circumstances, right? Like,
Like when did you make that switch? I know you retired. Like when did you switch to this more of a let's not like when did you want to change those behaviors that you had? When did you start to become more aware of the things that you were going through?
man, it was a process, really. January 8th, 2014, I submitted to Christ in my bedroom, and it was after I was on IR for a year, and um, man, it was the darkest year of my life, right? Like, no community. Um, I didn't have a lot of support around
In
me.
Indy?
Yeah, in Indy. Because of some injuries in house, I got kicked out to therapists outside of the building, so I stopped going into the building altogether. And it was just me and my demons as a 23-year-old,
You kind of
right?
just started you kind of to isolate away from the team.
Yeah, yeah.
Did any teammates notice at the time?
No, it's hard for teammates to notice, man, because when you're
Yeah,
in that juggernaut,
you're in that
you're
locker
focused,
room.
you're week to
Yeah,
week, right? So
yeah.
guys come and go all the time, and of course you
Yeah.
miss like
And you got that
the
mask and
big
that cape
presence.
on.
Yeah, but you still got stuff to get done, right? It's
Hmm.
still, hey, what? It's the next week, and that's the way we're programmed, right? Like the
Yeah.
unique thing about the professional athletes, as well as those who are incarcerated and those who have been in military service, right? Is you're in this bubble, if you will, outside of normal society. You don't know what
Yeah,
holidays are. You don't know what being injured
Right.
truly is. You don't know like how to feel the same
Right.
way that other people learn how to feel.
I mean, yeah, I think that's a really good perspective and insight there in understanding what is our understanding of pain too, right? And I think it goes across many different cultures. I mean, speaking about survival mode and what that does to us and the trauma that it does to the physical body, right? We all know that the powers that be, impoverished communities, you know, they're kept in survival mode. Survival mode helps you make many mistakes. It
Hmm.
helps you continue to spin. There's an entire generation in community of people that believe that surviving is thriving.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And they're
It,
and they're sold that way. You know what I mean?
and it may be thriving. It's just not living,
Right,
right?
right,
yeah,
Like
right.
it's
Yeah,
you might be thriving at surviving. You're not thriving at life. You're not living. You're only
yeah,
surviving.
Dwayne.
right.
Let me ask you this question: what do you call thriving and living? Like, how are you thriving?
Man, whenever I wake up and I walk into my purpose of serving others daily, that's when I'm thriving and living.
Yeah,
Whenever I wake up, able to walk into my purpose of service of others daily, right? Like that's when I'm thriving, right? When I'm living is the day that I get to do that. Whenever I'm thriving is the
Right.
weeks, months, right? The
yeah.
continuation of being in that state of walking into my purpose, right? That's when I'm thriving, and that's what I'm working towards, right? Like that's the elusive trophy, if you will, now that I strive for is getting back to that state. Because once you experience bliss, man, whew, there's nothing else like it, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Ah, look, when I got to day 100 of semen retention, and of course,
And when did you do that? Speak on that a little bit.
yeah. So
Like
Oh,
like what
please.
sparked your mind to do that?
it was. So getting word that I was having a son coming into this world with a woman who I barely even know, sound like a Usher song, um, was devastating to me
Yeah,
because it was a generational cycle that I witnessed and always denounced and made decisions
that's
throughout my life, right, to stay away
yeah,
from. So
yeah.
then being faced with it, like I had to not
That's like
only
the no no. That's like the no
yeah,
no.
yeah, but I had to face myself, and I had to
Yeah,
finally look in the mirror and realize that I was not my actions were not as aligned with the message that I was preaching as I thought it was. And
okay.
something had to change, right? And so as soon as that something had, as soon as I got to that place where something had to change, all the resources started to flood, and I was just open to receiving the resources, right?
Yeah.
So the first book that came my way was "You Can't Hurt Me," David Goggins.
Okay.
I believe that's the name of it. You can't hurt
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Military
um,
dude.
yep. It just
Mm-hmm.
talked about how we're all operating at, less than 40% of our mental capabilities, right? Like, and there was, and everything about this, what people need to understand is if something speaks to you and it's for you, then take it. If it doesn't, leave it there, right?
Oh my goodness.
People want to critique the
Yes.
entire freaking book and say, "Oh, I
Yes.
don't like this, I don't like that."
Nah, just take what you need.
Take what
Oh,
you
dude, I
need.
say that. I say that all the time, dude. Hey, you better take what you need and leave what you don't. There's a message there for you somewhere. You better look for that
Somewhere,
message. There's a
somewhere.
message there. So
And so
even if it's something, yeah, yeah,
that
So you
dude.
got your messages.
look, so that was the first one, right? That led to at the end
Mm.
of his book podcast, the audio book, right? Because at that time, right, my mind was so that I couldn't even read, right? Like I couldn't pick up physical books and slow
And sit
down enough
still.
to
Yeah.
read, right? Like
Yeah,
most
Yeah.
people
yeah.
say that it was this, and no, it's a form of my diet. It was a form of like it was all environmentally driven,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there wasn't, people tried to diagnose me ADHD and this and that. Like, no, please stop. Like, no, there's something else going on here. And I was able to go on this journey to figure out what was wrong with me. Not saying that there's not stuff that's wrong with other people, right? Like,
Yeah.
but I
Right.
went
Yeah.
on this journey to figure out what was wrong with me. And so at the end of that book, he talked about, ultimate human performance, which is the stretch routine that I go through. That's my form of meditation. When I sit down on that floor and I go through that routine of healing my body, I'm able to tap back in, get back grounded. What was the next one after that? Like just resource after resource. I'm blanking on my guy's name, Wim Hof, and his
Oh
book,
yeah.
right,
Yeah.
came
Okay.
at me, and then a friend sent me some stuff on semen retention.
Is that where you started to really focus on those cold showers after
Yeah,
connecting with
yeah, Wim
okay,
Hof,
Wim Hof?
Wim Hof.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's give it a try. Let's
Yeah.
just see. And
I recommend that for all the players that I work with. You guys have spent so many times in the tub, icing your body and stuff like that. That's a huge central nervous system reset for you guys. And
and
a
I
lot
can
of people
feel
think
it.
it's like physical, but dude, no, it's a central nervous system reset.
Mark, and I can feel it. Anytime I get into that cold shower and I turn that thing on and it hits the back of
Yeah,
my neck, it's
yeah,
just like, and of course, I
yeah.
oddly ask myself, hey, what is cold, right?
Right.
Like,
I
what?
like it ice cold, man. Like I try to sit there and keep turning it colder and colder. How cold can I make it?
Hold on, Dwayne. You still didn't answer my semen
Yeah,
question, man.
sorry,
So what's the deal
sorry.
with that? I want to
I'm,
go
I'm
into that.
getting there.
I've
So,
heard a lot of people talk about it. I just need to get
yeah,
your
the
perspective on
other
that.
thing was another book had came my way just talking about sexual energies, and
Yeah.
in that book it just talked about the way of the Tao, right? Like this ancient Chinese um,
Sir.
civilization, and how they believe that the rulers of that day, right, like the same energy that we have to create life, right? Make a child, my son, Ao, love you. You can create in this imaginary world that we live in if you preserve, right, that
Yeah.
serum. And
Yeah.
so it started with that belief. Everything starts with a belief, right? And so I was just like, that's an interesting belief. Let's go with it and see what happens.
Hmm.
And man, I tell you, whenever I got to day 100, right, colors, my heart, it was the first time that I had experienced innocence in my life, right? Because I come
That's
from
powerful.
such a
Yeah.
traumatic,
Hmm.
impoverished background, right? Like there is no innocence for the poor, right? And so it took me becoming this adult and having these experiences, and then going on this journey of semen retention to finally get to this place of innocence. And it was like, wow, oh, this is what it feels like. This is incredible.
Hmm.
And bro, like it totally changed my relationships. It changed it. Like I was able to
So when you was going
produce.
through this, like you got all the stuff was coming at you, but you were just so focused on
Bro,
what you
so
wanted.
focused, So focused. Yeah, so
I
focused.
mean, there's a lot
That's
of like
powerful, bro.
there's a lot of historical stuff connected to that as well. I mean, that's what separates the lineage, right? The aristocrat from the impoverished is that, right? There's also a lot to say in regards to the amount of energy, the creative energy that we give out. There's a lot of belief in retaining that to create and and it generates that creative thought process. A lot of artists go through it too.
Yep. Yeah, bro.
Because it depletes us. It depletes the mammal that we are. We know we're depleted and we're no longer up on the horse hunting, or
Yeah.
it's that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So whether it's semen retention, like bro, I go through a range of different things, right? It's semen retention,
I'm saying
uh,
fasting.
int- fasting, right? We talked
Mm-hmm.
about 3 day water fast
Mm-hmm.
that I go on to really reset, right? Like, and I
Mm-hmm.
need to go on one of those this weekend. Again, being transparent. But like for me, again, like it brings back that dog, right? Whenever I'm hungry and I'm conscious of that hunger. It gives me two things, right? Um, the understanding that I've eaten more than I needed to, and the opportunity to feed myself mentally what I need to. Because whenever you're feeding yourself physically, overfeeding yourself physically, you don't have the time and space to properly feed yourself mentally, right? Like
Ooh,
it's
yeah.
so.
Well, I think there's even an African proverb that says, the lion doesn't hunt on a full stomach.
Mm, I love that. I love that. I read it.
It
I
doesn't
read it.
hunt on a full stomach.
I read an Ikigai, right? Like, which is this Japanese book where they just talked about like the meaning of life, having purpose. Your Ikigai is your purpose, but they said something around the lines of Harabi Roshi, which means only to 80% full.
Hmm.
And that was from studies of the blue zones, which are the zones where they have the most centurions um, in the world, right? And
Hmm.
and so I was just like, let me start playing around with my diet
Yeah.
and figuring out if this has something to do with my productivity, with my motivation, with
Your mood, how I'm
my
feeling,
mood, bro,
my
and it
pain, all that.
and it does,
Yeah.
right? Like
It does.
all things again that we were taught, that we sort of knew about, but like when you don't come from the background where you have people that you trust, right? That have proximity in some way, people that look like you, that you can trust in some way, find some sort of similarities, preaching it.
Hmm.
And instead, it's someone who is paying you to perform preaching it, right? Like it takes a little while for that truth to sink in, right? It's like,
Right.
are
Yeah.
you doing this for me or for you, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, working with active players, how do you feel the NFL? And here, this is a loaded question here. How does the NFL and the NFLPA support players dealing with mental illness that are still active? What are some protocols that you can?
yeah. So, and I'm blanking on the name of the protocol, but we have team clinicians
Hmm.
in every club.
Okay.
And even if guys don't want to reach out to those team clinicians, one of the things that is my job is to spread the gospel of the fact that through Cigna, their healthcare, that they get 8 free visits with any clinician
Hmm.
that they
They
reach
get
out
to
to.
pick the
They
clinician.
get to
Yeah.
pick the clinician.
Yeah.
So they don't have to go to the in-house clinician if they don't feel comfortable. They can go out and find a clinician, right? And
which I
through
which I find to be absolutely huge. I think, when you're trying to find healing, it's all about relationship, and you got to find that connection to. It sounds like you found a really good connection with your therapist going on 14, 16 months. That's what it's about. It's that long term care. So, yeah, I think the ability and to have the freedom to pick the clinician that you want to work with is beyond huge.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. And you get 8 free sessions per topic,
Right.
right? I'll let you guys go ahead on it, but it's
That's
per.
that's kind of unlimited.
You said it. I
Well,
did.
well, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, being a clinician, I'm a credentialed, I'm a credentialed clinician through Cigna. You know what I mean? So, like, I'll be honest with you. That's the one thing that I can say about the NFL and the Cigna and players that are using, especially former players that are using that EAP benefit.
Yep.
I have not found one denial. They have not been like, no, you can't do that. So that's the one thing that I will absolutely like give major kudos to.
The other thing is, man, we're steady developing different programs to reach
Right.
out to guys, right? Like we have the PAIR program, which is the Players Association Injured Reserve program, where we try to engage guys who are injured and don't have that community to bring them into DC, or we're having another event down in Florida, or just online programming so that they can have that community and not feel like they're alone, right? There are other
Right.
guys who are going through injuries similar to you, maybe even the same injury that you can draw inspiration from or motivate and inspire them by the way that you work and recover, right? So there are things that we're doing on the union side to push for more mental health support for our guys because they need it. We need it.
During and
Yeah,
after, for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, and one area that I see as a clinician is that I work with, and I'm speaking specifically to the former players that I work with, and they have a lot of hard times finding or figuring out a way to access those resources, right? And so I think one area where I can come in and help, and one area that Sage Elite does, is being able to help them understand that they have those benefits. Some of the players are like, what are you talking about? So it's like, I think there's a lot of players that once they get
Like
out of
the
football,
education,
they're
like they don't, like
they're not
players don't know.
educated on. Other players are like, dude, I'm done with football. I don't want anything to do with football. Like they kind of like purge it out of the system, right?
And that's where again, man, we have programs like the Trust, which is powered by the NFLPA. That's the
Right.
Trust is solely for transitionary former players, right? Like you go through the wraparound, which they fly you to DC and then to one of Cleveland Clinic's
Yeah, brain and body
hospitals
assessment.
for the brain and body assessment. And through that process, you also learn about all the other benefits,
Right.
whether
Yep.
Right.
it's whether you want to apply for the not continuing education, but it might be called continuing education benefit with the trust, which is totally different from what's provided with the
Right.
NFL.
Yeah.
This is actually a scholarship, if you will, that they cut on the front end for guys who are pursuing different certifications and education, right? Like
Yep.
to right your EAP benefits and other medical benefits that we now have because of the work that has been done through their union, right? So the education part is the hardest part, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
whenever I go through my clubs, right, it's like, hey, you here with some money? And I'm like, yes,
Let me give you some
but I
education
also
and
have
some knowledge first.
I got some knowledge. I have some
Yeah.
knowledge that's gonna
Knowledge.
be
You're gonna need
worth
that knowledge when
more
you're done, for
than this
sure.
money
Yeah.
that I'm handing you right now.
Hell yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, man, that's if there's a difficult thing about the job that I
I
have,
said that's the disconnect.
yeah, it's really showing the guys the value of being a part of not only the union, but like listening and understanding that the knowledge that I have is more valuable than the cash that I'm giving them, right?
I was gonna say I
Right.
can definitely testify that because I remember just going through my transition. I tapped into all those programs. I got my college degree. Like I got all these different resources because that's the only thing I had that I knew of that I could rely on was using that NFL and all those seasons to really propel me to this next journey that I'm trying to go on. So definitely to tap into all those resources.
Yeah. I mean, I try to tell every player that I work with, like, that's part of your salary that the NFL paid you. You know what I mean? You have those resources to go use, and instead of using your NFL platform, you actually get to go and enrich your life, and you know what I mean. Do those other things. So, I always try to really present it to them like, that's actually paid towards your participation in the NFL. You should use it.
It's part of your compensation
Yeah,
package,
yeah,
right?
right,
Like,
yeah.
but yeah, that's exactly what I preach.
So, and expanding more on that question, what's some of the I mean, and I don't know if you can answer this question, and if you
Yeah.
can't, we can just pass it. Like, what are some of the things that those benefits cover for any player that's a former player that's listening?
Yeah, I'm probably not the best to go into the weeds, and we have a great team of professionals who specialize in each sector. But we already talked about the EAP benefit with
Yeah.
guys who want to find a mental health professional to work with. Right, 8 visits per topic, that's covered. They also have this new benefit that was rolled out that I'm blanking on right now. I wish I had a one page to pull up, where there are hospitals located regionally that former
Mm-hmm.
players, and I forget the qualifications, but that you have access to. So instead of needing health insurance or something like that to go to a urgent care or a local hospital, we have our own hospital network that guys can reach out to and go to. And I believe the number is like $26,000 per year, up to
Yeah,
yeah.
I was going to say I think the the benefit is like $25,000 per year per player to be able to exercise that. Now, I thought that the benefit also helped the spouses of the player as well too. Correct?
Possibly, I can't
There,
speak on that.
yeah. I'm
I'm
sorry.
not the expert. I'm not the
Yeah,
expert on the benefits, but maybe we could set up another call with one
yeah.
of our benefits experts.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, to be honest with you, I love it because I know there's a lot of players out there that they just don't have that information, and
Man,
um,
and it's easily accessible. Easily for me because I have the knowledge. Not as easily for them, right? Because they don't. But if they're able to navigate to the trust. Um,
well, I want to,
uh,
I don't mean to throw, a question at you there, Dwayne, but I felt compelled to ask, working with so many players. We've talked about the mental, the emotional, and one, how you handle it. We've also heard how the NFL and the NFLPA are developing programs to help players. What about physical for you? I know that you get out, you do your rolls, you roll the body out, and that's a very
yeah,
meditative practice for you.
And the yoga mat. You hitting the
yeah,
Yoga
weights,
mat,
yeah.
Dwayne?
Lightweights,
light weights.
high
Okay,
reps. Lightweights at high reps, but I have to that exhaustion does something for me the same way that meditative work.
right.
And I mean exhaustion, right? Because I can go on long walks in order to burn fat and look great, but it still doesn't do the same work as being exhausted. And whether that is
Pushing
the
yourself to that
condition.
limit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like us going and doing camelback,
Yeah,
and timing
yeah. Pushing your
ourselves,
mind and your
right?
body to that point.
Yeah, and there's this really cool, as you spoke about earlier, Mark, talk about the mind-body connection, right? Through my simple observations, whenever my body's hurt, my mind is hurt. Whenever my mind is
Ooh,
hurt, my body in some way is hurting as well.
Yes,
And
sir.
I like
so,
that.
as
Hmm.
I heal the body through the meditation and stretching, it's also important for me to prepare it, right? Like, and a lot of the tightness that we feel in our bodies, right, comes from us not like utilizing those areas,
Yeah.
and
And
so
stored
the body,
trauma
Getting
and
that blood
everything like
flowing
that.
there.
Yeah.
right, and
Yeah.
so man, I cycle, I lift weights, I swim in the cold ocean out here.
I was gonna say I'm
Um,
gonna come catch you in San Fran on a bike with your helmet and
Come
gear
come
on.
hang out, man. Don't try me. My bike's ain't in here, but I can roll them in here. Yeah, like that's my form of workout, man. And that's how I get to that point of exhaustion. And and then like setting a routine for yourself, right? Like one of the things that I always that was the first thing that came to my mind, right? Is all the transferable wisdom that we receive from our coaches throughout professional and college and high school playing. And one of the things that Bill Belichick would always tell me is everyone needs a routine. And so as I was making my transition, I was like, hey, what is my routine going to be, and where will my focus lie? And I made a decision right then that, my health and my education are the two greatest expenses that I will have going forward for the rest of my life, right? Like
Yeah.
investing into my health, my mental health, my physical health, my spiritual health, my professional health, right? Like, and also investing into my education in all those areas, right? Like, which includes travel and experiential learning trips and stuff like that, right? Like, but
Right. Yep.
um, yeah, making sure that I take care of that physical, not only because I want to look good, you know what I mean? I see you in your little hot shorts on Instagram, Brandon,
Yeah, I already know.
getting in your wheel and stuff. I know
Yes,
what you're
sir.
doing, thirst trapping out there. But
Thirst trap and healing body
also,
at the same time.
man, like whenever I take care of this body and I exhaust this body to that point, right? Like my spirit, right? Like gets to rise above and be in control, right? If I
Yeah.
don't do the things necessary to heal this body and exhaust this body will distract me from, my calling and the mission that I believe I'm here to complete.
Man, so insightful. I mean, to be able to look at all of those things, and then, I mean, we're transitioning to my next question, which is the spiritual realm, dude.
Right.
That's, here we are. We've gone through the mental, emotional, and physical, and the spiritual realm for you, Dwayne, is,
Yeah.
it sounds like you utilize all those other things, being able to be insightful, build the awareness, use nutrition, use your health as an investment into your future.
Yeah.
So I guess, and that leads you into the spiritual realm. So if you can take some time and tell us what your spiritual realm looks like.
Yeah, it's all tied in, man. It's all
Yeah.
tied in. I was
Trick
raised,
questions.
I was raised Christian,
I
Okay.
was like, you raised it
and
in
went
church.
I
raised
was going to
in
say
raised in the church,
North Carolina, so definitely
North
Bible Belt
Carolina,
area.
Bible Belt.
Okay.
Then going off to college, went
Yeah.
through a bit of disbelief, atheism,
Yeah.
to agnostic, to my spiritual awakening, if you will, January 8th, 2014, which solidified for me the identity of a creator in this universe, right? Like, and the way that I see things spiritually, man, is your religion is only the language with which you communicate your spirituality to those around you, right?
Right. Big difference between religion and spirituality.
Big difference,
Big
big
difference.
difference.
A
And
lot of people don't know
so,
that though.
Yeah.
right, and the doctrine that I read and use to communicate, my spirituality, right, told me to think about the fruit of the spirits and how to identify those who truly embody a life of spirituality, um, through the way that those fruits are, seen throughout their life, right? Like they don't have to say it. They don't have to come up to you and say, "I'm that 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 that." No, I can see love. I can see grace. I can
Hmm.
see um, forgiveness and all those things that like I was taught to look for
Yeah.
in those people who are believers, right? Like, and then I'm also called not to judge, right? Like, one of my favorite things, one of my favorite shows, Ted Lasso, right? Like he's like,
Oh, I love that.
uh, be curious, not judgmental, right?
Yeah.
Like, and we come into contact with different people from all different walks of life, man, and we immediately want to put a title on them and judge that person in the present from our past experiences.
Mm.
That's a gift that the creator gave us to protect ourselves, but like, man, we overuse that gift and it gets in the way of a lot of blessings, right? And so, but spiritually, right, like part of um, so be curious, not judgmental. That's that point. But spiritually, man, my affirmations, right?
Hmm.
One of my favorite reads that I probably listen to weekly is "As a Man Thinketh" by James Allen,
Hmm.
Okay.
which just talks about the power of thought, um, and how our thoughts become our words, which becomes our
The
right.
architect
Like,
of our
it's
reality.
it all
you
starts
know.
here. But in that read, it also it pulls from the religious text, the Bible, that I utilize to guide my spiritual life. And so in the mornings, It's all about reminding yourself, man, right? Like this, you're running this race, right? And all these distractions are going to come up on this race, or you drop into the matrix and the girl in the red dress walks by, right? Like, what are you looking at? Like
Yeah.
that's this life. And so that doctrine helps me identify the girls in the red dress and all the other distractions, so that I can stay focused. It also gives me examples of how people lost their focus in the
Mm.
past, so that I can be on the lookout for those things coming up in my life. and
Sounds
and
like
then
it sounds like you created an algorithm of life.
I don't know.
You know, a little algorithm that you can see things coming at you. You have your system in place. You have your process. And I'm of course I said that jokingly, but
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, we all try to develop our own process through life, man. And it sounds like you've developed such a beautiful process.
man.
To
and
be
that
honest, man.
and that's what that's always been there for, right? Like that spiritual realm for me, man, is I'm able to get there through routine, right? So
Right.
it starts in the morning with my prayer and affirmations, right? And then it continues on, and it grows the more that I dive into my routine, and the more consistency I have with my obedience, right? And the less consistency I have with my obedience, the less that I'm able to touch there, and the more fear that I feel come on me, right?
Right. Yeah.
I wasn't given a spirit of fear, but whenever I'm not given those reminders, because our minds are great idea creators, it's horrible idea storage, right? Like
Right.
it wasn't meant to store everything, no matter if you thought you had a photographic memory when you were in high school and college, Brandon, right? Like no, it wasn't meant for that. It was never meant for that, right? It was meant to create ideas, and for us to use our forethought to create in this imaginary world that we live in, right? And so through prayer, through community or connection, like Mark was talking about, and through reading a doctrine, right?
Hmm.
This history book of 60 different books, right, about history, right?
Right.
I get to learn and or remind myself, right, of okay, all right, the different promises. All right, whenever fear comes on me or anxiety comes on me, no, that's not real. And how do I know it's not real? Oh, because I've been told. And then I get
Right.
to pray about it throughout the day, which reminds me that it's not real. And in my affirmations, I get to remind myself again, right? And so, right, the importance of setting up your having your routine or having your algorithm, right, for life, right? Like it's all about, right, like, where do I set my reminders? Where do I set the pit stops where I get to look back and reflect and make sure that I'm still on course, right? Like that's what my spirituality and my spiritual journey is all about, man. And then staying open and curious about those around me.
Well, you've said it. You've said it several times throughout our time together, and you keep talking about staying open. And my friend, that's my number one goal in my life is just to stay open, to try to stay open and not closed off. I think
And your
it's important
thoughts
to
and your
know.
heart,
Yeah,
for sure.
just try to stay as open as possible. And I think you're doing it right. You've definitely sounds like you put together a system. I think it's also important to kind of touch base on how adaptive, excuse me, our routines need to be.
Hmm.
There was a quote that I read the other day that routines are killing us. There's a lot of there's a mental health movement and like some belief out there that our routines are killing us. They're putting us into this monotony of this just cycling. And I'm over here as a clinician, licensed and everything, and educated. I'm like, that's not what's happening here. The quote was like, don't be so routine about your life. Be an adventurer and live a little. And I'd be like, boy, anybody with an addiction just loves that. Tell
Yeah,
somebody with an addiction to go on an adventure, man. Like, oh shit, yeah, yeah,
let's go.
yeah. So I think when we talk about routines, is like they are rigid and they keep us in line, but they got to be adaptable. They got to bend, and they got to be able. We got to be able to move the fence around the pasture as we go through our
And we
life.
have to forgive ourselves, right?
Right,
That's the biggest thing, right? Like it's understanding that the routine is to assist us with life. The routine isn't life,
right.
right? That
Hmm.
routine is there to assist us, to put us in a place, right? so that we can accomplish whatever goals that we have, because anything that anyone wants is accomplished. So if they do the planning, they prep, and then they produce throughout that routine, right? Like
Yeah.
you have the proper planning, and you go after it, like, and you with zero expectations. Yes, I want to get there. I don't know how I'm going to get there, right? The resources that you need to get there will come to you, right? Like you will walk into them. This will pop out of nowhere. That'll pop out of nowhere, and you'll get to that destination. But it's us judging ourselves, right? Whenever we miss a day,
Right.
and going even harder, and I'll never miss a day ever again. That judgment more than anything is what killing us, right?
I think
And then
that,
Well, you
yeah,
know where
that
that comes from.
perspective
Though. That comes
alone.
from playing in the league. Like, you ain't missing no days
Yeah.
of work. What you mean?
right,
So
right,
know,
we were programmed to think like
and
that.
and learning, like, but with that also, Mark, is understanding your routine and making sure that you're covering, right, the things that keep you healthy and living within your routine. So
yeah,
if you don't have a healthy and comprehensive routine, right, that oversees your physical and mental health, your professional life, your personal life, right, like, and your philanthropic endeavors and or faith, right, then it's not comprehensive enough to produce that life-giving.
right.
It's not a life-giving routine for you, right? So it might be some planning that you need to do on your routine to make sure that you have those things tied in some way. It's not the routine. Routine is a part of human existence.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to bring that up because I think routines are a huge healing component. We know healing isn't linear. It's not linear, and it's going to go up and down and all around. You even said so yourself in reflecting with your time with your therapist, where you're taking a break right now. And I'm telling you, as a therapist that works with a lot of players, I'm open to those breaks. You know what I mean? Come and approach like a wave and let me help you when you need this stuff. But boy, I expect you to go out there and live it. I don't expect you
Put it to
to
use.
I don't expect you to keep crashing on my shore being like, dude. I expect you to recede. Go out there and put it to practice, and then, come back and tell me what worked and what didn't work. You know what I mean? Like, so it sounds like you have such a beautiful relationship and with your therapist, and that's a soft spot in my heart as a therapist. And seeing good therapeutic relationships is awesome. Last question for you: What's next for you, Dwayne? What's next for you?
Man,
And that's a heavy question.
It's a heavy question. That's a heavy question.
What's next for Curious Dwayne?
That doesn't give me any anxiety like it used to.
Right.
Ah,
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Like hearing that question used to, right? The
Oh,
heart
yeah.
would start to
grind. You about to
beat.
go get grind. You about to put what your mom say? Feet down, head down, feet turning.
Head down, feet turning, right? Now I get to take on that question and really dream, and I mean really dream, because I don't believe that, like, I was able to dream growing up just based on my circumstances. So it
I was
was
gonna
never
say, was
like,
football your
oh,
dream growing up?
no, like, I played basketball because everyone in the neighborhood played basketball, and so I picked up the
So you thought you
basketball
was going to the
and
NBA or what? Or
thought
you
I was
just
going straight to the league.
okay?
and
So you had the
and
NBA dream.
yeah, man, and
What made you
er,
switch? Real quick, what made you switch?
uh, yeah, the head football coach at my high school. So mind you, I'd been kicked out of middle school, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. Um,
Sounds like a football
for
player.
Yeah, right, and for
He need to be on the field.
and for saying forget routine, let me go seek
Oh
adventure.
yeah,
Right? Like, I was seeking adventure
that's
Yeah.
a
at 11, 12,
that's a
and
good type.
13.
That's a good football player.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I get to high school that ninth grade year. I just won an AAU D2 national championship, which guaranteed our D1 bid the next year.
Oh, that's
Um,
big in North Carolina.
huge, right? The basketball coach came to me, let me know, in the early days, I was going to be on varsity basketball. In the back of my head,
How
I'm
tall were
thinking,
you?
if I was probably like 6'3" as a
Oh,
freshman.
so yeah, okay, got you.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm like, if I'm enrolled in the school by then, right? Like, and the head football coach was in his first year, right? And he saw me walk by and came and gave me and talked to me and said, "Hey, you're a dime a dozen on the basketball court. You could be something special on the football field."
Oh,
And I was like, "Huh, is that right?" Then he went on and started talking about playing on Saturdays, which he meant college football. I had no clue. And then playing on Sundays, which he meant the NFL, which I had no clue.
Yeah.
right.
And then he reached in his pocket and he took out $10 and was just simply like, "Hey, look, you can take this $10 and go buy a bag of dope, smoke it, have a great time for one night, or you can take this $10 and go get a physical and change
Oh,
your life."
Oh,
And so
damn.
I took that $10, went home. I got a nickel bag, not a dime bag. I did.
real talk.
Now
I'm good.
I went,
Economics. You were learning economics, man.
I went and got the physical, man, and the rest is history.
What
Wow.
position
And
you
that's
play?
how
Tight
I
end. You started at
tight
tight end.
end.
Oh, that's
Started
crazy.
at tight end. I always played tight end, man. I dabbled with defensive end a little bit, and I always joke with my buddies. I was just like, man, I would still be playing if I played outside linebacker. Those guys got it so easy.
Michael
If they
Parsons.
get home once a game,
Yes,
you're all
yeah,
world, right? Like that's all it takes. But nah, I'm thankful for how things played out at the tight end position, man, and very thankful for my career.
that's dope, bro.
And everything that the game gave me, right? Like the game is so pure, and what I don't like, man, is whenever guys get done with the game and they, for lack of a better word, shit on the game, and I'm like, hey, look, you don't understand how many people out there that need the game the same way that you need it. I totally understand that there may have been some things that weren't clearly communicated to you, but don't shit on the game and ruin opportunities for other people who come from need basis circumstances that need the game because I needed the game. There
Yeah,
was
yeah.
no way that I was going to college. There was no way that I was going to
Your mom,
finish high
mom
school
said your
without
mom
the
has
game of
7 kids,
football.
right? Yeah.
Right, right. And so I make sure that guys, right, like, hey, look, like that's your experience with the game. Like, no two people experience the same NFL as we were taught, Brandon.
Yeah.
No two people have the same experience with the game of football, period, man. And so it's like, please preserve the game for those that come after us
Yeah.
because it's something special. It's an incredible tool in this country for someone to change their lineage through playing a game that entertains millions, right?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I want that to be here whenever my son, should he choose to pick up the pigskin, I want him to have that opportunity to go out and perform and entertain. And change his lineage to whatever it is that he wants.
Yeah.
Oh, I got another question. I just want to talk about just one last question, football question. So, what's like the biggest thing? Like what's one of the biggest things Bill Belichick taught you? I know everyone talks about how he's such this guru and mastermind. Like, what's some things that he taught you that's still that you practice or put to use to this day? I'm sure there's
Well,
so many of. I was gonna say,
everything I just talked to you about outside of service came from Bill Belichick, right? But in particular, he taught me the importance of history, right? Like where I come from, we share history like verbally, word of mouth, right? There isn't really
Hmm.
many documents. You don't read much history. We never looked at the Bible as a history book, like I just shared it to you.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so when I got to Bill, each team before, whenever he was doing his team preview, he went into the history. And I was just like, bro, what does that got to do with this week?
yeah,
And what he taught me is that, man, history history gives context, which breeds beauty, right? So without me saying that, hey, this is the iPhone of Dwayne Allen, right? This is just any other iPhone, and it really doesn't give you any context about this other than it is another iPhone, and thus you can't see the beauty. But once I then take you through the history of, hey, this was Dwayne Allen's iPhone that he recorded this major event in Europe, and he took it here and he took it there. It gives you context, which then you're able to see the beauty and see and judge its value totally different. And so
Right.
now, man, I went on this historical journey of reading through all of the history books, bro. Like I constantly am always looking back, like, history doesn't repeat itself, right? Like, no, but people do. And by being aware and knowledgeable in the history, grabbing the context, seeing the beauty of this world that we live in, man, seeing the why, right? Like history gives you the why. Just looking back, like whose family, who daddy, who's connected, how did he, why, right? Being curious about the history, man, that's what Bill taught me. And that has put me in a position of success greater than anything else. And of course, having a routine, and then, the importance of preparation, right? Like, um, every game that we went into, Bill did his best to, inspire us by building up. I remember one time we were playing a winless team, and we are like 10-0, and he
Yeah.
built them up to be the, AFC champions, and I'm just like, okay, I get it. Like,
What was
I'm
he doing?
motivated. He was motivating us to go out to properly prepare, right?
Uh,
Because one of the things that he always talked about is never overlook any opponent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, he did his best to find the one or two things that they were really great at in offense or defense and special teams, and he highlighted those one or two things. And that was enough to motivate us during those successful times to go out there and to properly prepare,
yeah.
right? And so, how I utilize that skill in the workplace is understanding that, there's always someone who's vying for my position, right? Like,
Yeah.
that I have to outperform today by the way that I provide world class service and support that strengthens our solidarity as a union. Right. There's also there are things that I'm going after. Hey, look, I'm not the only one going after it. What is going to be the differentiating factor
Yeah.
with me getting it versus someone else? Is it going to be my history just because I played in the NFL? No, it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
how I prepare, which leads to how I produce, whatever it is that I'm going after. And so, man, the importance of history, routine, and preparation, man, all came from the great University of Bill Belichick.
Good stuff,
And
bro. That's
like
legendary.
here, bro, it's legendary. He's had so much success, and a lot of people go there, and maybe they receive those nuggets from their background. That's why they don't value their time
I was
there
gonna
as
say
much
why
as they
some people
do.
make it and some people don't. Because they're not
Because
adapting
some
to the
people
system.
choose. Exactly. Some people choose to buy in and some people don't. Funny story. Before I got to New England, right? Like I was playing New England. I ran a stick nod.
Mm.
No ball, but I got a flag, right? As I'm running back, I'm talking to Gerard Mayo, who coaches the linebackers there now. And I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
yo, Mayo, why didn't you take the nod? And he was just very simply, because it wasn't my job. And what I realized then was that, hey, look,
Damn.
they were doing something different. They were learning something different there
Than
that
everywhere
made
else.
them way more disciplined than everywhere else, right? Like he didn't have to go into some sort of elaborate like explanation. No, it was because it wasn't my job done. And I then put it in the back of my head that I wanted to play there,
Oh,
right?
so you pursued there?
And yes, sir. And this is how I pursued there.
Ah.
As you know, in the NFL, right? Like you only watch the 2 games prior, right? The full games, you only get the full games of the
Yeah.
2 games prior, then the rest are cut ups. So
Yeah.
2 games before I played New England, I wanted to make sure that
In
my
Miami?
my technique, but this is with Indy
Oh,
because I
okay.
got
Okay.
traded from Indy to New England.
Okay.
That
Okay.
my technique, my finish, my like everything was just on point.
Chris
Yeah,
on
they're
point.
gonna
Like
see
Bill gonna like it.
like Bill gonna
He's,
love
he's,
it.
he's going to
So
see you
look,
in the film and be like, there.
I want that guy.
there, right? Like the
Yeah.
one thing I did not control, right, was the when
Right,
or
right.
the how, right? I didn't. So I did it with zero expectations, right? Like I really wanted to go there to learn. I wanted to learn. Hey, what is it that they are teaching that is different from what I'm learning here? Because it's something, isn't? And it's something tremendous. So I put that intention in my heart, right? Like
Yeah.
and anytime anyone would ask me, "Hey, Dwayne, if not here, where? New England, New England." And so after I re-signed for 4 years, I get my big bag. I'm going to be a Colt forever. Hey, baby, I was never leaving. I'm here. I played that one season. The next offseason, I get traded. Where?
I remember
To
that
New
shit.
England. And
Like what?
and I'm totally shocked. I'm like, what is going on? I just signed in Indy. I had a decent year, 6 touchdowns,
Yeah.
500 yards, whatever. I'm like, I thought I was going to be here forever. Like,
You,
what's going on?
you stayed open, and the universe provided you with some abundance, man.
Come on, man.
That's what
Come
I
on.
see. Yeah.
We live in this imaginary world where we have finite time but infinite space,
Yes.
right? And so what that tells me is like if we have an idea, go, move, bring it here,
Put it
feed
into
it, nourish
motion.
it,
Manifest
put it
it.
in.
Yeah.
Yes,
It sounds like you manifested that move, man. That's what it sounds like.
look, and go without expectation. I don't take credit for anything, man. It's the creator that puts me in a
Yeah.
position to be successful. But like, he's definitely like he or she or it has definitely
Right.
given me everything that I need
Right.
to live out right this existence for however long I'm here, right? And so it's just all about running my race, right?
Man.
Like that's it.
Man, Dwayne, man, thank you so much for your time, dude. I love hanging out with you and
Mark, I
picking
knew
your
you was gonna
brain.
love him, bro. I love
Yeah, I
talking to him.
did.
I wish
Yeah.
I could go live with him sometimes. He come to Arizona for like a couple hours. I'm like, I need more of you, bro. He's just so knowledgeable
Yeah.
and insightful about so many different things.
Yeah,
Bro,
man.
you got
Appreciate you
my
coming on,
line,
Dwayne.
man. Call me anytime, bro. And I'm serious about coming back with some of our benefits and really offering up
Yeah.
the
And we got to get
opportunities and
Sage
resources
Elite
that
in
we have
that
available.
part of the NFLPA, I guess, or just part of some of those programs for the guys, so we can help them out. And just
Bro,
there's more work
we
to be
will
done.
figure it out. Way more work.
Let's definitely stay connected and we'll figure something out. But Dwayne, thank you so much, man.
Appreciate you doing.
Talk
Mark,
talk
thank
talk
you.
talk
Yes,
to you
sir.
again soon. Okay.
Talk to you soon. Brandon, appreciate you.